Hi, it's Lauren with laurenteachesflute.com and welcome to today's tutorial. So in today's video I wanted to share with you some of the tips and tricks that I've used with my students over the years that I have found to work really well to get my beginner students a really solid sound on the head joints. So let's get into it. So basically for this tutorial I tend to use three things. So of course I will use the head joint of the flute, and then I will also use a hand mirror. So just if you could get in a room with a mirror, or if you have a hand mirror available that you can put on your stand, I recommend using that while you go along with this video. And then I also use a Numo Pro. But you don't need one of these. I'm going to show you an alternate thing to do if you don't have one. But this is something I'm going to use in the video because I think it's good for a visual demonstration. Alright, so before we get into how to make a sound on the head joint, we need to go over briefly how to take a good breath. So basically what you want to do is you want to put one hand on your chest and one hand on your stomach here, and just breathe from the bottom up. So you're going to fill your stomach first, and then you're going to fill up your lungs. And when you inhale, make sure your shoulders and everything are totally and completely relaxed, and your neck's relaxed, and you're just really relaxed. So breathe in and drop your jaw, do a low, deep breath, and it should sound like this. Like that. So I opened my throat, I dropped my jaw, and I took in a low deep breath, and I felt my stomach go out, and then my lungs expand. So if it's difficult for you to get your stomach to expand when you breathe, a good thing to try might be to lie on the floor on your back and put a book on your stomach and see if you can feel when you breathe in your stomach filling up with air. So that's a good, nice, deep breath. Your rib cage should expand and all that stuff. So let's try it again. And notice I get taller, but my shoulders don't cramp up. So just keep that in mind. Stay relaxed when you take a breath in. Step number 2 is to set your embouchure. So what is the embouchure? The embouchure is the shape the lips make when we play the flute. So in order to play the flute, the embouchure, or the shape of the lips, needs to be somewhat pouty. Kind of pouty and puckered, kind of like this. Okay? So you can use your mirror, just try to be pouty and puckered. It'll make sense in a minute. Step number 3 is to set your aperture. So the aperture is the shape of the opening of the lips. So when you play the flute. So the embouchure is the shape of the lips. The aperture is the shape of the opening of the lips when you play the flute. So you want to have an aperture that's kind of the shape of like a little sideways horizontal piece of rice. So it should feel as though you are like spitting out like a piece of fuzz in your mouth, or a piece of like a watermelon seed. It should feel like that. So your lips are forward kind of, and you're spitting out a piece of watermelon seed or something. So that's the embouchure and aperture shape, and I'm going to do a quick demonstration, a close-up in the camera so you can see what I mean by this. Alright, so I hope that was clear. So the next thing we're going to do is take a deep breath like we talked about. Use the kind of, I don't know, like you're drawing your nails, maybe blowing bubbles, kind of embouchure shape and aperture size. So look in a mirror and try to imitate what you saw earlier. So step number 5 is we are going to finally take the head joint, and we are going to briefly talk about the different parts of the head joint. So this is the head joint. This is the crown of the head joint. This is the lip plate right here, this plate, the lip plate. And then this little hole right here is the embouchure hole, and this is the tube of the head joint. So basically what we're going to do, so look at your lip plate, look at the large side of the lip plate, and then there's a narrow, small side of the lip plate. So one side of the lip plate is bigger than the other side. So you are going to take that big side of the lip plate and put it in the scoop of your chin right here. So you're going to have the lip plate in the scoop of your chin, and the crown of the head joint is going to face your left, and the tube is going to be facing your right. So this is probably the most involved step. So basically, you want the embouchure hole to be parallel to the ceiling, facing straight up, and you want to place the lip plate in the scoop of your chin. And you'll notice that your bottom lip kind of falls over the embouchure hole. And I like to cover or recommend in the beginning, it varies slightly here and there, but just a good general safe amount of the embouchure hole to cover with your bottom lip is 1/3 of the embouchure hole. This is very important. Just cover 1/3, use a mirror, and I'll do a close-up to show you how much I'm covering when I play. So I put it in the scoop of my chin, below my lips, and then I cover, my bottom lip just kind of falls over and covers 1/3. Now I will say that I have very thin lips, and so it works really great for me to put my lip plate right in the scoop of my chin. But if you have fuller lips, you might want to experiment with putting the lip plate slightly higher so that your bottom lip doesn't cover like the whole embouchure hole, but you might play with it being a little bit higher in the scoop of your chin rather than right down in the scoop. So just play with that, find what works for you. But in general, you don't want to crush the bottom lip with the lip plates. You want the bottom lip to be free to move and be flexible when you are playing different notes on the flutes, because we need our embouchures to be flexible. So make sure your bottom lip isn't being crushed by the lip plate, but it's below the lips and somewhere in the scoop of your chin. But you might need to adjust slightly depending on the way your lips are shaped. Alright, so step 6 is we're going to blow into the head joint now. So basically put it in the scoop of your chin to where you're covering about 1/3 of the embouchure hole with the bottom lip. And use a mirror and make sure you're covering 1/3 of the hole. Make sure the embouchure hole is facing the ceiling, and aim your air. You want to like start with pushing air through closed lips, kind of, is helpful, I find. Like you're saying, starting with a P. So you want to just take a deep breath and use slow, steady air. And you want the air to be directed down without looking down. You want to face forward. So the air needs to be directed down so you could split the air, kind of aim the air at this outer edge of the embouchure hole. You want to split, half the air needs to go into the flute and maybe the other half out in front of you somewhere. So your air is being split by that edge. Now if you want to practice aiming your air down, you can do this. You can kind of grab the head joint at the crown, however that feels comfortable, and put the tube in the scoop of your chin, and then put your finger down here and see if you can feel focused, slow, steady air on your finger. And if you have a Numo Pro, you can do this with the Numo Pro, which I really find helpful, especially for beginning students to know what their air is doing and to be able to see it. So basically you have this little contraption. It has fans right here. And I like to tell my students when we're first getting a sound to aim your air at this fan right here, because it really helps people understand, you know, how it feels to aim the air down into the flute to get a good sound. So Anyway, the embouchure hole's facing the ceiling, so we put a penny here to make sure it stays there. And then we aim the air slow, steady with a deep breath on that fan. So notice that I wasn't using terribly fast air. I mean, I was just spinning the fan moderately. It wasn't like a whole bunch of air was escaping at once. It was slow, steady air. So you can kind of imagine that you're blowing at that fan if you don't have a Numo Pro. But you can get one of these. I think you can get one at blockyflute.com, and I'll put a link in the description if you are interested. Alright, so after you're done with all of that, you can go on to step 7 and put it all together and make this sound. So you can start the air with a poo, like a P syllable, or you can go who. The reason I like to try and experiment with my beginners with starting with a P is because it allows them to really kind of push air through closed lips and get that nice narrow sized aperture that we're looking for, as opposed to like a round aperture or something. It's like setting you up for success. So it's a good thing to experiment with, but you can try both. So deep breath. Alright, great. So now I'd like to troubleshoot one common problem that I see when beginners are starting to play in their head joints. So they tend to spill their air. That's one of the most common things that happens. So let me demonstrate with the Numo Pro. So this would be spilling your air. So notice that my air was not focused at all. I was using a ton of it, and I was spinning more than one fan at a time. So again, you just want to make sure your air is really focused, aiming at one fan and using slow, steady air on that fan. So really quickly, this is what spilling the air sounds like when I spill my air or use all my air at once on the head joint. So you'll notice it sounded very airy because 95% of my air was going out here when my air needs to be directed down like a 45-degree angle. So you want to make sure you're facing forward, but your air is directing down this way when you play. And that's the first step, and of course using slower, controlled, focused stream of air. So a way you can practice exhaling or letting out your air in a slow, controlled way is to use S air. So take your deep breath and simply say S and feel how it feels to let your air out slowly and controlled. All right, and then take that same kind of feeling and apply it to blowing in the head joints. Take a deep breath and go. And that's how to produce a sound on the flute head joint. Now if you have that down and you're kind of getting bored because this is all you're working on for the week, you can try putting your palm on the end of the head joint because it makes a low sound, and that's kind of interesting. So you might have to use slower air to get that low sound. You can do the finger slide. And you can play different 3-note songs or something, or make up songs by playing different notes by adjusting your finger. So I'll do so So you get the idea. So you can do all that stuff with the head joints when you're working on it and when you're doing this exercise. So I hope this tutorial was helpful. If it was, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more tutorials. And I will see you in the next video. Alright, thank you for watching. Bye.